In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a self-marking quiz in Google Classroom. Now, if you have not seen the previous video about adding classwork to Google Classroom and marking work in Google Classroom, you might want to go back and see those ones. Okay, so over here in the classwork page, you can see that under the create button, we get this option to create a quiz assignment. Now, if I do that, if I click that button, it's just going to open a blank Google form, which I'll then have to fill out as a quiz. It's easier if you just do this ahead of time, which I've done. So if I go over here, I've got this camera quiz that I've created. So you can see that it has multiple choice questions. Before this is a quiz, you need to go up here into settings. You need to make sure that over here on this quiz tab, that this make this a quiz button is checked, and that means that we can assign point values to questions and allow auto marking. You can also see here that if your students are using Chromebooks, you can turn on locked mode, which means that when the students access that quiz, they can't access anything else in their Chromebook until the quiz is completed. Here you want to make sure that the release mark immediately after submission is checked if you want the students to be able to access their questions once they have completed the quiz. So that's you want them to be able to do that so they can tell whether or not they've got the questions right or wrong. Over here in the general section as well, I like to uncheck this box that says limit to one response because I want my students to be able to go back and correct their mistakes. But if you just want to assess them and get a general overview of the understanding of the class, you might want to uncheck that one. You also might want to check this box here that says collect email addresses so you know which student has completed the quiz. Once that's done, you can hit save. Now, once you've checked that box that says make this a quiz, once you have completed the multiple choice responses here, you see here that you have an answer key. When I click on that, I can assign points to each question. And what I can do here is I can give feedback for correct answers and feedback for incorrect answers. So when a student gets the answer correct, there's a little bit of information there to reiterate why that was the correct response. And again, if they get it incorrect, there's that as well. Now, self-marking quizzes do not have to just be multiple choice. You can add, I've created them at the top. You can add short answer questions to those as well. But if you are creating short answer questions for a self-marking quiz, the answer must be very specific, because if a student writes something other than what you give to be the correct answer, they'll get marked as wrong. So if I know that something has a definitive answer, what camera setting? All right, I know that the answer to this is only going to be aperture. So in my answer key, the correct answer will be aperture. All right. You can add multiple correct answers if you're asking a question which has multiple correct answers. But again, it needs to be the answer that the student's going to write. If they add anything, if they make a spelling mistake, or if they add something that is not exactly as you've written it, they're going to get it wrong. I can assign a point value to that. I can add answer feedback if I wish, and I can hit done. Okay, so now that that's completed, if I wanted to assign that form to my students, that quiz to my students, I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to go down here to add Google Drive, and it should be in the recent section here because I've just completed it. I'm going to click camera quiz, and I'm going to add that. Now, when you add this quiz, it looks slightly different. You can see here that it has this grade importing button. So if I have that checked, then I won't have to mark the work. The work will be marked automatically. This particular quiz is out of 7 points because there's 7 questions. I can add the point total at the top there. Just going to assign it to a section. I'm going to call it camera quiz. And I am going to assign that work. Okay, so there it is. So if we go back into what my student can see, my student should then be able to go into their classwork and see this task that I've just assigned them, the camera quiz, and it'll just show up as a Google form that they can click on. They can go through, answer the questions. Let's see if I Aperture, let's make that a spelling mistake. That's I'm going to call that a close-up even though it's not. Midget. And submit. So that's what my student will see when they've completed the assessment task. They can view the score and they can see up here they've got 5 out of 7 wrong. They got that one, they got that incorrect, but then they can see the correct answer. So if I want them to go back and do it again, and I've given them that option, they can go back into Classroom and they can just complete this again. Okay, so then once that student has completed that quiz, I won't be able to, so when they've completed it, it'll come up as handed in and I can see that that student has done that. What I can also do is when that quiz has been completed, you'll see at the top here that we get to see the responses that students have given it. So we get some real-time data about the questions that the students are getting correct and incorrect. So far, there's only one response, so that data is not very strong. But you can see that over time, if a number of the students were getting that one answer incorrect, then I know that there's a gap in my teaching somewhere that I might want to go back and recheck. I can also see this data as a spreadsheet. So anytime responses are collected in a Google quiz, I can create a new spreadsheet and that'll create that as a Google sheet where I can see that data. I can start to make checks about which students have done the work, which students have got it correct, which students are getting high, medium and low marks. And then I can start to assess my teaching and assess the students as a cohort based upon that information.